It's time for us to stand up and say, enough's enough. Stand up. Stand up with me. Stand up. Let me hear you say it. Enough's enough. You work for us. You work for us. This is the message that they need to be reminded. And right now I'm going to ask Mr. Bundy to come up here because this is the man that's going to remind them who they work for.
You need the information so you can go home, think about it, and decide for yourself if what I'm saying is true. And then it'll burn in you. It'll be something that's more than just a hype. Hopefully it is something that will stick with you all the way to November and maybe the rest of your life. Now what I'm about to tell you helps us all understand a little bit about the people of Idaho, here in this great, beautiful state. This information shows you what people in Idaho are thinking when it comes to the governor and what liberty-loving Idahoans like you and I need to do before November. So, SurveyMonkey's poll in August of 2021, it questioned people in Idaho about the governor's role and the race for the governor's seat. I think you will find the results fascinating. At least I did. The first question that was asked was, would you agree or disagree that a state governor has the authority to shut down churches? So, would you agree or disagree that a state governor has the authority to shut down churches? Okay? Now, to me, this was a no-brainer. You know, it was just a no-brainer. Of course they don't. And actually, most Idahoans agreed. In fact, 60% of Idahoans agreed or strongly agreed that the governor does not have authority to shut down churches. However, right, you're doing the math in your head? Surprisingly, 40% of Idahoans did not know or agreed that the governor has authority to shut down churches. 40%. I wonder if they have ever read the First Amendment, right? Do they know that the U.S. Constitution prohibits any government agent or official from restricting the free exercise of religion? Of course, that also includes shutting down churches. It's off limits, right? But 40% of Idahoans do not understand that governors have no lawful authority to shut down churches or restrict travel or close businesses. 40% of your neighbors don't have an idea about the role of a governor and what their limits are. The second question SurveyMonkey asked was, would you agree or disagree that a state governor has a duty to protect the people's rights to worship, travel, and trade with each other? Now this one was more definite, and once again the majority of Idahoans agreed. 74% agree or strongly agree that the governor has the duty to protect Idahoans' rights to worship, travel, and trade. So you can ask yourself that. It is a duty, they agree, 74% agreed that it is the governor's duty. Now, as you know, so here's where it gets really interesting. As you know, in Idaho during 2020, Governor Little issued multiple executive orders, one that shut down churches, restricted travel, and closed non-essential businesses. It was the greatest infringement on Idahoans' rights ever in the history of Idaho, in the history of this country. Still to this day, churches, businesses, and Idahoans have not fully recovered. Many churches and businesses never will. Many went out of business. And it is still a question of whether our nation will recover. What do the people of Idaho think about what Governor Little did to them? Well, SurveyMonkey asked this question to Idahoans all over the state. Out of the top governor candidates in Idaho, who do you believe would be most willing to stand up for your right to worship, travel, and trade? I have to say these results were shocking to me, as almost 40% said Governor Little would be most willing to protect their rights to worship, travel, and trade. So there's that 40% again, right? There they show up again. They actually said out of the top governor candidates, which would be Janice McGeehan, I was in there, probably Ed Humphrey was in there, and Governor Little, out of all of the top governor candidates in the race, 40% said that Governor Brad Little would be most willing to protect their rights to worship, travel, and trade. Now, the disconnect is astonishing. This 40% of people in Idaho must not realize what Brad Little did to them. They must not realize that he ordered churches to not assemble, ordered people to not travel unless they had authorization, and ordered most small businesses to close their doors. He also ordered all police agencies and sheriff's departments to enforce this order. He even sent the Idaho State Police around to raid small businesses that refused to close down during this order. So you can see we have a lot of work cut out for us. We have to show these people what Brad Little and his buddies are doing to Idaho. That's our challenge. That's what we have to do. You're here now. Maybe some of you may have thought those things, but I would guess the majority of you already know what I'm talking about. So we have to take this information and we have to go to work. We have to find this 40%, which is all around us. 40% is a lot, right? So all around us. And we have to arm them and educate them in what is happening. And so, like I said, I hope you can see that you and I together have a tremendous amount of work that we have to do. Now, the writing here in Idaho is on the wall. If we do not act now, Idaho will become like Oregon. We already have states named New Hampshire, New Mexico, and New York. So if allowed, maybe after Brad Little and his buddies have their way, they will change the name of Idaho to New Oregon. Right? Yeah, don't cheer for that, right? We laugh at this, but too many Idahoans have the illusion that Idaho could never become the new Oregon. Not many years ago, similar blinded people living in other states like Washington, California, Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico thought the same thing. They would not see when they still could have made a difference. Now these states, once conservative, are ultra-liberal. Their cities are overcome with homelessness, drugs, homosexuality, crime, independence, and overpowering government regulations. These once tranquil, productive, independent communities are now cesspools of liberalism. I remember when I was 21 years old and I flew into Portland, and I thought it was the most clean, organized, beautiful little city that I'd ever seen. It was. And now look at it. Now look at it. And that's what we're trying to say. That's what we're trying. We have the chance now. So why did they not recognize the writing on the wall and act when they could have? And will Idahoans do the same thing? I hope not, but we shall see. We shall see. The signs are right in front of our eyes. A rising influx in homelessness, millions of dollars being pumped into food stamps, government housing, welfare programs, even Idaho state institutions that help people do safe drugs. That's a real thing. Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. The influence of the Idaho government has never been more powerful in the lives of everyday Idahoans. Idaho bureaucrats increased spending nearly 25% over the past 5 years. Idaho bureaucrats also incarcerate more people per capita than any other state. The U.S. incarcerates more people than any other country in the world, by 4 times, making Idaho the most likely place in the world to be arrested and incarcerated. Statistically, you are 12 times more likely to be incarcerated in Idaho than you are in communist China. And there's hardly any crime here. So, government employment in Idaho is now pushing 120,000 people. Dependency on the federal government to pay Idaho's bills has never been higher, and Washington, D.C.'s influence and control over Idaho has never been greater. Liberalism is the destruction of the individual, family, and community, and it shows its ugliness in poverty, crime, dependency, and government overreach and abuse. Many of these signs are showing in Idaho. The writing is on the wall. We have to wake up. A turnaround at this point is still possible, but it will not be easy. Hundreds of thousands of people have become dependent upon the Idaho government to live. This dependency translates into more dependency, more state programs, more homelessness, more crime, weaker families, and justifies the growth of government power and force. Idaho officials like Governor Brad Little are increasing this dependency by taking massive amounts of federal money, creating new welfare programs, and increasing funding to the existing programs here in Idaho. Combine this with those who are employed by the state, and nearly half of the people who live in Idaho receive government funds to sustain their living. So a turnaround from liberalism is possible in Idaho, but it will not be simple. Begin taking state programs away, and you will see those benefiting fight like their entire life depends upon it. The same goes for decreasing the size of a government agency. Those in the agency will forcefully resist like there is no job in the world other than theirs. So a turnaround in Idaho will not be blissful. It will not. And I'd be lying to you if I said otherwise. 40% of Idaho's budget goes to health and human services, to welfare. Over 1/3 of Idaho's revenue comes from Washington, D.C. Before the federal COVID money came, Idaho had not been able to pay its own bills in 38 years. So keeping Idaho from becoming the new Oregon will take tenacity. It'll take some real grit. Are you up for it? Yeah! Okay, that sounds good. Are you up for it? Yeah! So we know the current regime in Idaho here are not going to be the ones to keep us from going into liberalism. Brad Little and the establishment have had control of the Idaho Governor's office, the House, and the Senate for nearly 4 decades. And yet most of the Republican platform has not been implemented in Idaho. They are still killing unborn children. They have not minimized the size of government. They have not decreased state spending. They have not protected the people from overreach. With an all-Republican government, one would think Idaho would be the most conservative state in the United States. But it continues to drop every year in the Freedom Index. If Idahoans are going to keep Idaho from becoming an Oregon, Washington, or California type state, then we must unite together. Yes! We must set our differences aside. We must join arms and act before those wicked agendas, those people with wicked agendas, get too far above us. We must rein in the Idaho bureaucrats and diminish the people's dependency upon the state. We must end Idaho's dependency upon the federal government by opening up Idaho's land and resources to the people, creating wealth that will allow the Idaho government and the people to pay their own bills. We must also ensure that Idahoans can freely trade with each other, travel, and worship how they desire without threat from government force. So the question remains today. Will the people of Idaho ignore the writing on the wall and become the new Oregon, the new California, or will they take action now to keep Idaho, Idaho? That's the question. What will we do? What will we do? Now, last Tuesday, the primary election confirmed several things that my campaign staff and I believed was happening, but we didn't know for sure. The primaries was the best poll that we could ever have, right? We know now for certain that half of the Republican Party membership are disgruntled with Brad Little and the establishment leadership. We know that now. It was also confirmed that the Liberal Democrats have formed an unholy alliance with Brad Little and the Idaho Good Old Boys to gain and remain in power. Approximately 36,000 Democrats registered Republican to vote for Brad Little and Scott Bedke in Tuesday's primaries. How do we know this? Because we gleaned this information by comparing the 2018 Democrat primary voter attendance to this 2022 Idaho primary. And that's what it comes out to be, a little over 36,000 Democrat voters. We also know, because it wasn't all bad, we know that without this, well, this part is, so we know that without this unholy alliance between the establishment Republicans and the Liberal Democrats, that Priscilla Giddings would most likely be the nominee for a lieutenant governor, and Dorothy Moon would be the nominee for Secretary of State. This primary election also confirms some positive things. That by uniting with the disgruntled Republican Party members with unaffiliated voters, constitutional and libertarian voters, and new conservative move-ins, we can dominate the upcoming Idaho general elections. That's right. I'm going to read that again. This primary election also confirmed that by uniting disgruntled Republican Party members with unaffiliated voters, constitutional and libertarian voters, and new conservative move-ins, we can dominate the upcoming Idaho general elections. We can gain control of the office of the governor, the Attorney General's office, and the legislature. We can get the mechanism of the state government back to doing what it is designed to do. We can once again breathe more easily with knowing that those leading the Idaho state offices will openly secure our rights rather than infringe upon them. We can wake each morning with assurance that those in our state government will actively defend each Idahoan from any outside forces, like the Biden administration or the collusion of international forces that is forming. Now, all right, I gotta put it on. Now, after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin is quoted saying, "We must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately." Now, possibly we do not find ourselves in such an imminent danger as the founders after signing the Declaration of Independence. But the same end can be assumed. If we do not hang together, then Idaho as we know it will be lost. Where will you turn and run to then? Where will you go? Where will you live free then? Where will the spark of liberty thrive then? What will you pass on to your children then? So you see, we don't have much of a choice. We really don't. The liberty-loving Republicans must hang with the liberty-loving unaffiliated voter. And they must hang with the liberty-loving constitutional and libertarian voter. And they all must love and accept the liberty-loving voter who has recently moved to Idaho seeking freedom and protection. Even the liberty-loving Democrat must hang with us, or liberty will dangle and suffocate from the gallows of good intentions combined with deliberate wickedness. We must all hang together. We must. Now, my words may seem to be extreme to some of you. I hope not the majority, but maybe some of you. Maybe some that are watching, some that are will watch this in the future. They may seem extreme to some of you. And they may be saying to themselves that CBS News and the Idaho Statesman told me that Ammon Bundy was an extremist. And I don't want to join or support an extremist. So I want to make this very, very clear. Very clear. After what I saw happen to my family's ranch in Nevada, I became an extreme, very extreme, for the protection of property rights. After I saw what the courts did to the Hammond family in Oregon, I became extreme for justice. After I saw my friend and fellow rancher shot 3 times in the back with his hands in the air by a state police officer, I became extreme for limiting government power. After spending 2 years in federal prison, locked in a 10-by-7 box, concrete box, for months on end, never being convicted of a crime, never once being able to hold my little babies or console my sorrowing wife. This made me extreme for just due process. After I've had hundreds of people cry to me for help in defending unjustified abuse from those who hold the force of law, I have become extreme for uniting neighbors in defense of their neighbors. After I've seen babies ripped from the arms of loving parents with little hope for a quick return, I have become extreme for holding government officials accountable. Through all of this, I have never used or advocated for violence, even when it was justified. I have always stood upon the rights outlined in the United States Constitution. And now today, we've seen the cost of living double in just a few years. Fuel prices at an all-time high. Inflation skyrocket with no end in sight, and a major food shortage almost imminent. All caused because of incapable and wicked individuals forcing themselves upon people like you and I. As I see this, I become even more urgent for you and I to unite, for the people of Idaho to unite, and to unite now, before it is too late, before they are above us, before we lose the ability to unite. So yes, I am extreme for liberty. I am extreme for liberty. And I hope that you will become extreme for liberty too. I hope that you and your family and your friends and your associates and your co-workers will unite with me and fight extremism with extremism. Never has liberty won or been preserved by complacency, apathy, or by moderates. It has always been taken an extreme effort from good people to defend liberty and secure it. It has always taken extreme efforts from good people to defend and secure liberty. It is the same today. So, will you join me? Yeah! Will you join me? Will you join me? And together, we will keep Idaho, Idaho. Thank you.